Real esoteric spirituality without all of the fluff, without all of the nonsense. This is the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. Click subscribe and then hit the little bell button so that you can be notified whenever I've uploaded a video or when I'm doing the live Q&A videos. Hello, Thunder Wizards. So I'm coming on later than usual. A couple of reasons for that. First one is that I got caught up in a bunch of nonsense on my end, and the other reason is that the stream has been very iffy, and I think that's because I was doing it on the weekend at a time of night when there was just too many people out there. So we'll see how things go. YouTube in the beginning always tells me that I need to change the video stream, and then it gets itself happy for some reason I don't understand. It says it's doing okay over here, so we'll see. So we're going to talk about the moon when it comes to ritual, when it comes to magic. And that's because I'm getting ready to start getting empowered with the moon. So I always share with you what I'm doing. And lately what I've been thinking about is the moon's role in helping the soul and the body and the brain work together. This is really important to understand when it comes to what the mind is. So for those of you who don't know, we are going to talk about what the word moon means, what it actually is, and how it connects to the mind. So it's not difficult to find people who will tell you that the moon is associated with the mind and with emotions. That is certainly something that astrology teaches, Vedic astrology teaches. And we associate the moon with meditation. But in the West, for the past, even starting with the Greeks, starting with the Greek Empire, classical Greek Empire, what started happening in Europe and in the West is that we started disconnecting from our mind, and we started confusing mind with intellect. So for those of you who don't know, if you're new to the channel, I'll explain it to you. If you're not new, forgive me for going over things you've already heard, but it's important stuff to know. And it's always good to go over the fundamentals. So the word moon in Germanic languages and English translates directly to the word for mind. So, and human being. So the word for human being in ancient Germanic was the word man, which is where we get the word man. And man originally, a long time ago, the word man did not mean a male human. That's what it means now. Man means male human. It didn't mean that originally. It meant human being. The words for male and female were wer and wief. The word that we have now for wife comes from wief. Wief didn't mean a woman who was married to a male human. It meant woman. So when you say, this is my wief, my wife, what you were saying was, this is my woman. Now, if that sounds sexist, wait till you hear the other part. So when a woman says, this is my husband, what she is saying, this is my housebound. Because husband means housebound. So, and there's a whole reason behind that, but we're not talking about that today. Today we're talking about man. So man meant the mind. It meant also the moon. So the word for the moon is man. It's also the word for mind. And you find variations of this root word man in multiple Indo-European language. In Sanskrit you hear of the word manas. The first human being in the Vedic tradition is named Manu, I believe. Manu. The first human in the ancient Germanic tradition, his name is Manuj. It means the same thing. It means mind. It means the moon. And originally the moon was a male deity. We can get into that. Both the sun and the moon both have male and female aspects, and we've shifted those recently. But originally, and you find this in multiple shamanic traditions, the moon is male and the sun is female. But that's because we've switched it, in the moon's case, we've switched it from the internal aspect of the moon, the internal aspect of the sun to the rays of the sun. The rays of the sun are masculine. The internal aspect of the sun, which the nuclear fusion, is female. Going in and then exploding out. We have yin and yang, female and male. And then in the moon you have the opposite. The moon itself is masculine, but the rays of the moon are feminine. So when somebody worships the moon, they can aspect either one of these, male or female, it doesn't matter. But what is so important about human beings being called mind and not intellect? Because that's what we prize the most. We prize it the most in philosophy. We prize it the most in science. We even prize it the most in religion. And we think that when we call somebody smart, what we mean is book smarts. Oh, he's really smart. Oh, he knows a lot of stuff. But that is the intellect. That's not the mind. And again, it started with the Greeks. The Greek philosophers started focusing on the intellect and changing the importance to the intellect. That's one of the reasons why when you go, in high school or even in college and you learn Western civilization, which is history of, it's interesting, we don't learn our history. We don't go and learn history. You don't. It depends on, where you're from. If you're in a Western university, what you're going to learn is the history of civilization in Europe. You're not going to learn actual history, especially if if somebody like myself, my ancestors are from northwestern Europe, and they were, during the time of the Greeks and the Romans, they were considered barbarians. They were the most primitive, they were uneducated, they were illiterate, they were, they were looked upon the same way that we look upon the uncontacted tribes in New Guinea. That's how they looked upon the northwestern Europeans. That's why we don't hear about history, we hear about Western civilization. And when you go to Western civilization, what's the first you learn? You learn about, maybe Babylon and all that. The history of empires is what you learn. You don't really learn history. Anyway, I don't want to get off on that. The whole point of that is that the intellect is important when you want to run an empire. The intellect doesn't do very well when you want to be an artist, when you want to be a meditator, a spiritual practitioner. The intellect doesn't work as well for that because the intellect is what we use to differentiate things here. So let me spell out to you how it works to be a man, to be a human. In order to be a human being, you first have to have a soul. So the soul is the spirit that is infinite. It is not tied to any time or place or even location. It is infinite. This soul wants to experience man. It wants to experience emotions, and it wants to experience the interaction of the human will with limited reality. Because as a soul by itself, it's infinite. It feels like it is everything. It doesn't need or want anything. So it yearns for a greater, more intense experience, and so it becomes man. So the spirit, the soul, comes into the body. The body is in three-dimensional reality, and the body needs software. First, it has this computer up here, which is a quantum computer And this is not coming from me. This is coming from neuro psychology. They've come to the conclusion that the brain is a quantum computer. And so this quantum computer interfaces with the soul, and this computer needs software, just like what I'm using right now to what I'm using right now to transmit is software. And so your brain needs software as well. For the soul, my accoutrements are all messed up here. For the soul to be able to interface with this three-dimensional virtual reality, which is all this is. All that life is a virtual reality experience. I'm not going to call it a game because it's more than that. It's an experience. It's a virtual reality experience for the soul. So the mind is the bridge between the software of the brain, which is the intellect, and the intellect is in the brain. That is my belief. The intellect is in the brain. That's why the intellect can't understand about eternal life. It can't understand about energy. It can't understand about magic. It can't figure that out. By itself, it doesn't. That's why academia and people who are, academicians and scientists and, doctors, for the most part, they are atheists. And that's because that works for them. And it's okay with me that they are, because they need that software to figure out the science of what happens in this three-dimensional world in order to beat diseases, in order to figure out, how to put electricity in a house, or, gravity and planets and all that. You don't have time for all this spiritual stuff. You need practical reality stuff. So that's why for them, everything is the brain. There's nothing that exists outside of the brain, because their life, for the most part, is centered in their intellect, and it should be. But the mind is not centered in the brain. It does interface with the brain, but it is even beyond that. And I remember being told an experiment by one of my students, God, had to have been 10 or 15 years ago. And he had shared with me an experiment that he had read about or something, where they were trying to figure out when the brain makes decisions. How long does it take for a decision to happen in the brain and then somebody do something? So something as simple as me picking up my glasses, okay? My glasses are right here. So they put electrodes on people's brain and okay, go. So when the person made the decision to pick up I think it was a pencil, went to go pick up the pencil, the brain didn't acknowledge it until after the fact. Then there was this flash in the brain that said that, that's when the decision was made. And so it's interesting because it was after they had already reached for it. So the conclusion that they came to was that the brain wasn't making the decision. The brain was merely recording and witnessing the decision. There was another really interesting aspect to that. I don't know if it was the same experiment or another one, but it was the same guy telling me about it. And he was talking about people who had their corpus callosum separated. If you don't know what a corpus callosum is, you have two hemispheres of the brain, and in between that is this, this bundle of wires, this bundle of nerves that connects the two halves of the brain. Now, women have a larger corpus callosum than men. That is why women can be on the phone, cooking dinner, and taking care of a child all at the same time. They can do multiple things at once because the two hemispheres of the brain, the left side and the right side, which has to do with tasks and has to do with emotions and all that, that is more of a cohesive connection. Men, on the other hand, they have a smaller corpus callosum, which means that's why men say, quiet, I can only do one thing at a time right now, I need to focus. That's helpful for cavemen because they were hunters and they needed to focus. They needed to focus on the prey, and that's why men are they focus on what to do to fix the problem. That's the way that they're built. And so when the corpus callosum, that bundle of wires, is broken, is snipped, because of injury or whatever, between the two halves of the brain, the two halves of the brain don't communicate, well, that way. And so what would happen is they would tell one side of the brain, like in one ear, they would say, "Get up and walk across the room." And the person would get up and walk across the room. And then they would ask the other side of the brain, "Why did you walk across the room?" And the person would say, "I was thirsty." So what's interesting is that when the brain doesn't know why it's doing something, it makes something up. This is important to understand for those of you who are following my path and you hear me talk about unconscious resistance. Unconscious resistance, when unconscious resistance means that when you are going through a period of transformation or evolution, when you're learning something new, especially spiritually, which means you go through some kind of a death or transformation, it's frightening to the unconscious mind. So the unconscious mind will create a distraction or do something to stop you. And this can come out in all kinds of ways. You can get angry, you can get scared, you can get lonely, you can get sad, you can get confused, you can get tired. When I give people mantra rituals and I say, do this mantra ritual for 40 days, and if that mantra goes in and starts to really reprogram the unconscious fights back because it doesn't want to die, it doesn't want to change. It's trying to protect you. It's mistaken, but it's trying to protect you. And one of the things the way you know you're going through unconscious resistance is if you sleep through your ritual time. Like if you're going to do ritual in the morning, you sleep through it. Or if you're going to do it at night, and you lie down for a few minutes and say, I'm going to do my ritual, and you fall asleep and you wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and you missed it. That is one of the ways you know you're in unconscious resistance. Unconscious meaning you're not aware of it. So the unconscious doesn't come out with a postcard and say, okay, you're going to go through some major transformation which is threatening to me, so I am going to stop you. It doesn't do that. It says, it doesn't make any sense for you to do this right now, and you should relax and do whatever, and it tries to do whatever it can to just simply talk you out of doing that thing that is going to empower you. So we need the mind, getting back to the mind, because the mind is, what was that? Forgive me. What I was saying was that the brain tries to come up with rational reasons to explain why you do things, when in reality it doesn't know. Your brain is a computer, and part of the job of the computer is to record everything that's happening. If you think that you came up with the decision, but lots of times you don't. The brain thinks that it comes up with the decision to pick up the pencil, but it doesn't. It just merely records it. And so the mind is beyond that. And so the conclusion of that, of those experiments, were that the mind, or wherever decisions are made, is not centered in the brain. So the intellect is a software tool that is designed to help us survive physical reality. So figuring things out. I've got to figure this out. That's the intellect trying to do its job and protect you. The mind is the seat of the emotions. So all of the emotions that you have, love, happiness, joy, sadness, anger, resentment, fear, skepticism, all these feelings that you go through all the time are connected to the mind and the nervous system. And so they're not rational. They're also very frightening because you can't control your emotions. Can't control them. And so it can be very frightening, especially when we're dealing with intense emotions. In fact, I'll go so far to say is any of the really intense emotions Sorry, I'm getting distracted because I'm seeing we're having internet issues again. That's it. I'm moving to Australia. I'm done. I'm going to move to Australia. That's it. What was I saying? Something about the mind and the emotions. And the emotions are very frightening. And so one of the ways we protect ourselves from frightening emotions is we use this software called the intellect to avoid. So when you ask a question and I do this squinting thing and it looks like I'm in pain, it's because I can tell that you are operating from your intellect, which tells me a lot. It tells me that, number one, you're a good Westerner. You've been taught well, and as we all have. That's not a put down. But it also tells me that you have learned to use this software in your brain to distance yourself from your emotions, because having emotions is a vulnerable, frightening place to be. But in order to have, for the soul to have this experience, the visceral experience of three-dimensional reality, it wants to do that through the mind and through the emotions. So that's why in ancient times, the mind was more important. And that's why human beings in ancient times were called man. The mind. We're called mind. What does the mind, what is symbolized by, what symbolizes the mind is the moon. Same word, man. The original word for moon in English was not moon, it was man. It means human. So we walked around and we called somebody man, we were actually calling them moon or mind. We're actually calling them the first human. So the difference between humans and animals is that the humans are man, they are moon, they are mind, they are emotions, they reflect the spirit. So the mind is extremely important. Now, how do you empower the mind? You empower the mind through meditation. And let me talk a little bit about what meditation is. I got a question from somebody, I don't know if they're watching tonight or not, but I got a question from somebody who said, I'm frustrated with meditation because it doesn't remind me of how I used to feel when I would smoke weed. And I try for an hour and I don't feel like that, and should I just keep doing it? And my response was, who told you that meditation was going to feel like being high on weed? Where did you get that? And then I said, if you want to get high, do Qigong. Qigong is another extremely powerful method. In fact, I would go, let's put it this way. If the mind is emotions and connects the soul to the intellect and the body, and if that is a power, if somebody has a strong mind, it means they have a strong meditative mind, the ability to reflect the soul, the ability to operate not just from an emotional place, but from a place of intuition, psychic powers, magical powers, empathic powers. These are all properties of a powerful mind. If meditation allows us to connect with the mind, then Qigong is like steroids for the mind. So I said, if you want to get high, do Qigong. And I gave him the link. You can find it up here. Go to courses.thunderwizard.com, or if you go to neo.thunderwizard.com, it's the second step. If you don't want to pay for it, then go onto the free channel and look for Thor's Hammer Qigong on my channel. The Hool Breath. You can do the Hool Breath. The Hool Breath is a Qigong type of meditation. Now, if you do those things right, I can guarantee you will have an experience and you will get high. Because here's what I've learned. The reason why Western society loves intoxicants is because we no longer have access to the mind. And so we use chemicals to forcibly induce the release of hormones and other things in the brain through the glands. DMT is one of them. There are people that buy DMT and take it straight so that they can what? They don't know it, but what they want is to connect with the mind. The problem is when you do it, when you use a chemical, an external chemical, it forces the brain to squeeze out those um, those hormones, but it also stops production. The body goes, whoa, hang on, we got way too much of this, stop. So you become dependent upon those chemicals just to have what you believe to be a spiritual experiences. That's what this guy was saying. This guy was saying, I used to smoke weed to have this experience of the mind, and now I can't do it. I try and I can't do it. There's two things going on. One, it doesn't sound like he knows what meditation is, and he's just trying to sit there and close his eyes and have some kind of experience. And I can't do that. I'm a meditation master. I can't do that. I use steroids, qigong. I use powerful qigong to do it for me. So qigong, what it'll do, especially the celestial qigong, but any of the qigong I teach, what it'll do is it will prime the third eye, the pineal and the pituitary, as well as all the other glands in the body to secrete these feel-good chemicals. Because these feel-good chemicals do actually give us an ability to tap into life force energy. And they do give us an ability to dream, to have shamanic experiences, to exit the body. If you want to learn how to exit the body and have, astral travel and do all that, put time and effort into mastering high-level qigong. I guarantee you, you'll have that ability. You'll have to work for it. The good news is you won't have any of the side effects that you get from taking DMT or smoking weed or, acid or whatever it is that you or somebody might want to do to have those experiences. The other downside is that you will not have any mask between you and your unconscious feelings. The difference is, and another reason why we in the West love intoxicants is because they block us off from our unconscious, unresolved issues. They suppress them. Whereas qigong, yoga, negong, internal practices, they release the same chemicals, but you don't have that suppression factor. The opposite happens. It brings to your conscious awareness all of your unconscious, unresolved issues. Why is that important? Because when you have the mind clear, this is what is represented by, when you see pictures, when you talk about meditation and somebody will throw up a picture of the moon reflecting off of still water. And you see this everywhere. A really powerful image is somebody, sitting in lotus, full lotus in front of a lake or a pond, and the moon rising over that and shining and reflecting off of that. That stimulates us because that's what true meditation is. That's what true mind is. And when you have that clear mind, which is, you hear about it in Buddhism, cleaning the mirror, cleaning the glass. When you have that clear mind, then guess what happens? Then you have the ability to reflect your spirit. Your spirit is infinite. And then you have the ability to achieve what you want. So I wanted to talk about a few things before we get into some questions. Here's another thing I don't talk enough about. The moon is also the nectar of immortality. Whenever you hear about the nectar of immortality, whether it's the mead that Thunar drinks, Thor, he is called Lord of the Mind, by the way, that is his name, Thunar, Lord of the Mind. He's also Lord of the ambrosial nectar, which is Thu. And Indra, which is the king of the full moon, or the king of the abundant nectar of immortality, Inthura. And you have a god in the Vedic tradition called Soma. Soma is another word for the nectar of immortality. This is why yoga and qigong are associated with longevity and health. Because yoga, qigong, tai chi, these kinds of things, as well as meditation, what they do is they release These chemicals, when they're released naturally, are also things that reverse aging in the body. Because the goal of the ancient practitioners was to stay alive and conscious for as long as possible. And the Taoists, in fact, they don't want to reincarnate. They want to transform every part of them. They want to transform their entire body so that they ascend in a physical form and leave this material plane behind, and they take their body with them. The same way, the way Jesus is represented of having the transcended body where he can walk through walls. Taoists, that was their goal, and they called that becoming an immortal. So the reason why the Taoists, the Chinese, are so good at practices that keep you young and energetic and healthy is because the high level guys wanted to keep their body alive long enough and healthy enough so that they would then master the ability to transcend to the next level. And in the sect I was in, there's all legends about the people who taught the Grand Master so and so, and he went and who knows where he is and all that kind of stuff. So this is the mind. The mind is the nectar of immortality. Iduna. Iduna means na, the feminine of the full moon, the feminine of the nectar of immortality. I is full. Thu is the nectar of immortality, or the moon. And na means negating or feminine, emptiness. That's why she walks around and she has the apples of immortality. Ithuna is her name. So when you worship the moon, this is what we're looking for. And this was the destiny of Man, of human beings. The destiny of human beings was, when they incarnated, their destiny was to live, perhaps eternally, in that one body, in that one mind. And through that, they would then learn and grow. This is why people get frustrated with the thought of, why don't I remember my past lives? And I've talked about that. They're missing the point on that. But that's where that comes from. It is our desire to live long so that we can transcend. We can become gods. This was the whole point. So I could talk about this for a long time, but now I am prepared to take a look and see if there are any questions. Before I do that, I'm going to take a short break, because I've been talking a little bit, and you can understand more about the Qigong I've just been talking about. Hi, I'm Michael Denny of SpiritTao.com, and this is Celestial Negong Part 1. Celestial Negong means that this is power that is descending from heaven. And the idea is that we are all microcosms of the entire universe. You are the entire universe, and everything around you is simply the projection. You are looking within yourself. So when you look up into the stars at night, you're actually looking deep within your own body. When you look at the sun, the moon, the trees, the flowers, you're looking within yourself. This is Negong. And so what we're doing is we're simply releasing that infinity from within us. You are tapping into and releasing the power that is within our own body, our own cells, our own organs. So one of the reasons that I'm making this DVD is in the hope that the essence and the spirit of the teaching of the Shang Qing arts can be taught to the world at large, and it is my hope that the core essence of what the Shang Qing tradition is will continue to live and grow and evolve. As we move on into the Aquarian age, everything is changing. I don't need to tell you that. The entire world is changing, and what we are seeing now is that if people hold on to external things, they are very challenged in life. And those who are making the transition into the next phase that we are moving into in the world as we approach 2012, those who look within and find their source of strength from within, those are the people who are getting the most out of life and will make the transition into the next phase of evolution most comfortably. It is my belief that the Shang-Qing tradition is one method whereby human beings can evolve into the next level of being in the most comfortable fashion and be able to take advantage of the rapid, energetic, mental, and spiritual changes that are going on in the world today. Alrighty, so Celestial Qigong. Alright, so let's take a look and see what kind of questions we got going on here. God's Son question. Odin as an archetype. Well, first again, this is a question, but now you've forced me into your bubble, which is you want me to talk about Odin as an archetype. I will go ahead and play that. So let's talk about Odin as an archetype. Which archetype is Odin associated with? So again, I don't know what you mean by archetype, but which part of the mind is Odin just a celestial god? So those are three questions there. Anyway, Odin, I'll tell you my understanding about it, and you can decide what archetype that means for you. Odin is, his function is to open up the intellect to connect with the mind. So this is true of the Buddha as well. Buddha and Odin in very different ways. Their goal is to unite the intellect with the mind. When the intellect, which is the word intellect means to pick apart from among. So this is people who are very critical. You know, I've got a strong intellect. I'm very critical. I'm critical in a good way. You can pick things apart. I'm very good at that. So I got a strong intellect. But the intellect without the mind is just being stuck in intellectualizing things and not understanding them. With Odin, you have the intellect vibrating at its highest level and unified with the mind. So it's a very powerful connection. He is connected with the planet Mercury, although every time I say that, I hear him say, don't try and limit me just to the planet Mercury. But his job is to help us go into the infinity of, especially in the northern direction, but the infinity of the universe and not lose our identity. I could go into who Odin really is. If you really want to know about that, I recommend that you watch my channel and type in Odin. I've got a lot of videos there where I talk just about Odin. You can find out more about him and what I teach about him. Lorena Grecu question, why did the word man end up being a male human instead of just human? Because Western society was divorcing itself when Europe was becoming Christian. The Christian conversion period, the church worked very hard to keep human beings stuck in their intellect. Because in order to be a Christian, you have to believe in Jesus. That's all that you need. You know, if you believe in the right thing intellectually, you're saved. So that right there created fear, so that people had to live in their intellect and believe things that didn't make any sense in order not to go to hell. So again, the intellect is trying to protect you from pain and misery. So that's why, again, you do that for, you know, once you've worked that in and you're enough generations away from the original religion, then you got people who are stuck in their heads. And that's, so the word man became, they knew it meant human being, but then it turned into a very different kind of patriarchal society, and so man became men, male humans. Okay. Joe Connolly, question. I thought Odin was the god of the mind, of wisdom, knowledge, intellect. that kind of makes me, did you ask that question early? Did you listen? This is what I mean. I'm misinterpreting and conflating mind with intellect. Odin is a god of the supreme intellect merged with the mind. People use the word mind in our culture. When they use the word mind, they usually mean intellect. Because most people in the Western world don't know what the mind is. And when you start talking about the mind, they poo-poo it. And they go, oh, that's airy-fairy stuff. This is why my experience of Western magic is that it's really clumsy. Because you have to think so hard to make things happen. And it's different in societies that don't have a break between the modern times and the ancient times. In the Western world, we do. We don't have access to our original spiritual practices. So Odin is a god of the mind in the sense of the intellect that merges with the mind. Wisdom, meaning smart. Wisdom, the kind of wisdom that comes from the mind and the wisdom that comes from the intellect are two different things. Odin is very witty. He's got a biting wit. It means he has a strong intellect. So do some more research on my channel about that. Again, you're throwing out these generalizations. Again, stop trying so hard. Here's my suggestion. You're coming onto my channel. You want to learn from me. What does teachers say? Empty your cup. If you want to train in martial arts and you've learned in Shotokan karate and then you want to go learn Wing Chun, the Wing Chun guy is going to make you stand differently and do things that your Shotokan karate guy would say, don't do that. You have no strength in that. This is different. Forget everything you think you know. Start over. I recommend you read my books. I recommend you watch my videos. And then come back to some of your old understandings. But what I hear, I don't know you and I only know you from what you write. It's a little superficial. It's a little generalized. It's like stuff out of a book. Odin is the god of wisdom. Okay, what does that mean? Got to go deeper than that. I try to go deeper than that. Okay? So it's not that your questions are wrong or that your understanding is wrong. It's just, slow down and listen to what I'm saying. I'm not saying don't ask questions. Don't get me wrong. The theory of fate. Question: can you explain why you work with Vedic astrology versus Western astrology? So here I get to do my little spiel about, please learn how to go onto my channel. And gosh, this internet is so screwed up. It's really annoying me. Please go onto my channel and with whatever device you have, learn how to search within my channel. On a desktop, if you go to the channel page, thethunderwizard.com, right next to the name, there's a little magnifying glass. You click on that, you get a search bar, and you can search any search term you want in my channel. So if you type in astrology, a ton of videos will come up where I go into detail. I even have ones about the difference between Western astrology and Vedic astrology. So the short answer is that for me, Vedic astrology is more accurate because the sidereal zodiac, there are two. There's the tropical zodiac and the sidereal zodiac. 2,000 years ago, when the Greeks and the East Indians were in Afghanistan learning what we now know of as astrology from the city-state that originated it that no longer exists. When they were there, the sidereal zodiac and the tropical zodiac were aligned. And so it didn't matter which one you were looking at, you were seeing the same sky. Vedic astrology uses the sidereal zodiac, which is the actual stars that are shining above you and hitting you. So when you look at my Vedic chart, you're looking at the actual light of the stars as it was hitting me when I was being born. When you look at Western astrology charts, you're not seeing that because it's 24 degrees off now. So some people can talk about, that there's some value to it, and there's a lot of Western astrologers that are extremely accurate, and so I can't really say it doesn't work. For me, it doesn't work. The other reason is that Vedic astrology has very practical tools. Mantra, if you want to know what your mantra is and what you want to accomplish, you need Vedic astrology. If you really want to get into some really precise, accurate, go into super accurate detail about things, Vedic astrology is extremely deep, very complicated, and there's so many things attached to it that, for me, I just don't get from Western astrology. That's why. 1729 Rocky question: how can the worshipping of Sri Chakra affect the mind? Do you have any practical experience? Well, again, please don't ask me questions about stuff I don't teach. I don't teach about the Sri Chakra because I don't have a lot of experience in it. I can tell you that it is very powerful. I have personal experience with it. I have one on my wall over there. But I would have to have far more knowledge to be able to share with that, and I don't want to pretend and waste your time and disrespect you by pretending I know something that I don't. I strongly recommend that you research it. It's a very powerful tool. You're talking, anyway, we'll talk about that another time. Netheria Fade question: what do you think of the intuition being in the seat of the digestive tract? I think that's nothing I've ever taught. And again, ask me things that I teach. I've never heard that. I can't comment on something I don't know anything about. All right. Pavel, please write the word question. Do you need to fast for moon magic ritual? Which one? I mean, there are so many rituals that you could do for the moon. There's so many things you could do. I'm sure some of them require fasting. The short answer is, do you have to do it for any? No. Let me talk about that. I was going to talk about when the most powerful times for the moon are. So the two most powerful times for the moon are the day before the full moon, because the moon is still waxing. Once you get to the actual day of the full moon, the moon has hit its apex and it's starting to come down. I mean, you get the full brunt of the light of the moon, but it's starting to lose its power. The day before the full moon, that's when the power is really coming up. That's the best day to, if you want to do a full moon ritual, that's the day to do it. And the other is the day before the new moon. So the day just before the new moon is when the moon is at its, at its darkest. And that's a powerful time because the moon represents being connected to the soul, having the soul reflect onto us. So a new moon represents being eclipsed from the soul. And that's why, I'm very sensitive to the phases of the moon. And when we hit a new moon, I usually get very uncomfortable, depressed, sad, pessimistic. And lots of times I'll go, what the heck is bothering me? And I'll look and I'll go, oh, no wonder it's, full moon coming up here today or tomorrow. So those are two good times. Another thing to do is, say, start a ritual on the day before the new moon and do it all the way up to the day just before the full moon. Do a whole ritual doing that. Have an intention that you want to create. That's a very powerful way to use the moon for magic and to use the waxing of the moon to grant you that. You can do it the other way around, but for most of us, we operate that way. The building up of the energy of the moon is what will make your ritual work really well. Okay, what else? God's Son. All right, so again, I really just want to look at your questions. Angerboda Abrasios. Question: Hecate, goddess of magic, represented by the triple moon, seems to me. It's not a question. Again, I love Hecate, but I don't know anything about her. I am somebody who's, I'm putting together my understanding from my experience of Norse mythology, my understanding of Vedic mythology, my understanding of working with Taoist, and with some others. Greek is not one of them. So I appreciate the question, but again, the same thing. Put some time and effort, watch my videos, know what it is that I teach, read my books up here, go and find out all my stuff, and then ask a question of what I teach. I'll be able to answer that. Having said that, you're welcome to ask anything you want, but if I don't know it, I can't answer it. DJAB slowed and smooth question. How can I follow my intuition without being self-deceived? Is it ever possible not to be self-deceived? So, I don't really know where this is coming from, but let me just ask you this. Do you think that there are people who are able to trust their intuition? You don't have to answer me. That's just a rhetorical question for you. It seems obvious that there are people who can. So the question isn't, is it ever possible not to be deceived? Of course it is. The real question is, why are you so easily deceived? It's not a put down, it's just a question for you. And it's a rhetorical question, you don't need to answer it. It tells me a lot about you. First and foremost, it tells me that probably astrologically you have some issues. You probably have the north node of the moon very powerfully placed, which creates deception. But let's talk about what deception is. Whenever you're deceived by anything in the universe, it's only because you are being stimulated in something that causes some kind of fear response. And by fear, I don't mean you're scared to death, but like, I need more money, or I need more love, or I need more this, and I have to find some way to go around so I can get what I want the easy way. Anything that has to do with that, if you get stimulated by that, you're in danger of being deceived. I mean, we know con artists. What do con artists do? They come at you with something that's too good to be true, that you can't pass up. It's a big risk, but you do it anyway because in case it turns out to be true. Gambling is a good symbol for that. By the way, there are 3 sins or 2 sins that in the Vedic understanding you cannot burn off in one lifetime. And those sins are murder of your teacher, rape, and gambling. Those 3 things are said to be, sins that you can't burn off in one lifetime. And I'm not saying trying to be a stickler about that. I'm not trying to put any kind of. I don't necessarily think that those are open and shut things, but what they represent is operating from that headspace of I don't have enough. I need to do something else. I need to trick the system or take a shortcut or something in order to get what I want. That puts you in a spot of being a victim, and that is something that once you're in that trap, it's very hard to get out of, and it's going to take multiple lifetimes for you to wake up and go, holy crap, I've been deceiving myself this whole time. So if your intuition deceives you, it's not your intuition. You can't tell the difference between your intuition and your fear-based responses to life. And that's a whole different thing. Let's see. You're asking me which Vedic chart do I use? I don't really know which one it is, but it's this one. It looks like this. Okay? The one that goes, that the ascendant or the first house is always in the top and it goes in a clockwise fashion. I don't know. I think that's South Indian, but I honestly don't remember. My chart, where is it? Right there. Okay, what now? Rogue Magi question. Do you have any advice for me to overcome my fears and assumptions that I will never be taken seriously? I can feel the assumptions and the overcompensations now coming into my conscious mind. It's hard for me to, without knowing you, I haven't looked at your chart. I don't think that you and I have had a private session, so I'd be guessing. If I knew you, I would have some very specific advice for you how to do that. But the first thing is to make the decision that you're not going to operate from your fears. That doesn't mean your fears are going to go away, but that you make the decision that that's how you're going to interface with your life. And then I would recommend doing all this stuff. I got up here, I got these links up here for a reason, guys. I have no shortage of things to offer and things to sell. Neo.thunderwizard.com has the 4 things that I believe everybody can benefit from, and if you want to benefit from my teaching, those are the 4 things. Go and work the crap out of those things. You know, you will be served by saying, I'm gonna dedicate my life to mastering those 4 steps in neo.thunderwizard.com. If you do that, I can guarantee you that you will gain you will overcome a lot of those things. But the one thing you got to do is get out of your head. I know enough about you to know that you're in your head a lot. You're in your intellect a lot, which means that you're afraid of your emotions. I would also recommend, I don't know you, but I would recommend that you stop all mind-altering chemicals. Stop any THC that you're doing. Stop any alcohol. Stop vaping. Stop coffee, caffeine, any kind of stimulants or mind-altering chemicals at all. I would get rid of them because those keep you trapped in your intellect as well. That's my without knowing you, those are my suggestions for you. Chelsea, I don't know how to pronounce this. Dines question. I'm visiting Asheville, North Carolina currently, and have heard of energy vortexes. Okay, so don't know anything about it. If you can find it, great, but I can't comment on something I don't know. So I don't know anything about vortexes in North Carolina. If you find them, I hope you enjoy your experience. Speaking of vortexes, in case anybody wants to create their own vortex, I've been using this for 6 years now. You can go here to pemf.thunderwizard.com. You know, vortexes just mean that you've got a lot of electromagnetic fields that help you. There's all kinds of negative electromagnetic fields, like the one coming off my computer and the electricity and the lights and phones. Those are negative electromagnetic fields, but electromagnetic fields that work for you, the Earth itself creates an electromagnetic field at 9.6 hertz. That's why when you go to the mountains or you go to places that have strong vortexes, guaranteed there's going to be some kind of rock formation under there that is channeling 9.6 hertz from the Earth. If you ever go like up into the Sierra Nevada mountains, you'll feel huge amounts of energy, and you'll lie down, in your tent, and you'll just go to sleep because there's so much energy healing you. And when I would go up there for 2 weeks at a time, it would take me a week just to come back into my body. It was anyway, but go to pemf.thunderwizard.com. So if you want to create your own energy vortex every night underneath your bed when you sleep, I use that. I've been using it for 6 years. What else? In the Theory of Fate question, at some point in the future, would you be willing to look at the seat of the intuition in the gut? I would value your opinion as it relates to the mind and intellect. Well, I appreciate people asking me questions and asking me to look at things, but, I'm not what do you call that? I'm not a jukebox. If you're led to work with me on whatever level, then put the effort to follow what I teach. I don't really know why that's such an important thing for you. In order for me to know that, I would have to talk to you. But, and it's also, put time and effort in to look at all the stuff that I teach and ask me about that. Asking me to go and research something for you isn't helpful to you. It's not helpful to your learning. There's a reason why, the old school teacher-student thing is there. Sir, yes, sir. And you sit down and you wait for the teacher to say something, and, you wait for him or her to tell you, because it puts you in a state of learning. But what we want to do is we want to tell people what to do. And a lot of Westerners, this is a big problem with Westerners and teachers, because Westerners see teachers as a commodity. and I've paid for you, so you belong to me. Do what I want. I'm not saying that that's where you're coming from, but you know, I don't know that it helps you to ask when I've already said I don't know something about that, and then to ask me to go and research it for you. You know what I mean? It doesn't help you learn. You can tell me why it's important to you. Like if you get into the emotions of why it's important to you, then I can help you. Because then I can feel the need in your question. The fact that you had to ask me after I said I don't know anything about it means that there's a need. Whenever I feel that need, that's when I like a shark, I go in and I want to look for what the unconscious issues are. I can help you with that. And I would rather help you with that than be your puppet and have you command me and tell me what to do. Again, I'm not trying to pick on you, but you don't see that's kind of what you're doing here. Try to understand how this works. The way that teachers work, if they are a true teacher, then number one, they are human, but they are also conduits of higher masters who have their own agenda about what they want to teach. And so when you sit in front of the teacher and you listen to what they have to say and you respect where they want to go and what they want to teach you, you are actually respecting the higher masters that are being channeled through them. That's why you look for the teacher that tells you what you want to hear. I didn't say that right. You look for the teacher that you feel attracted to that has something that you need. So the real question is why do I have this need to understand intuition and the gut? Which really there's something about that. You want to ask me something about why you can't trust your intuition. There's some kind of question like that that you really want to ask me. And that I can help you with. So it's also helpful for everybody listening when we're talking about the moon here. When you ask a question, it's really good to come from an emotional awareness. Know what your feelings are about it. I'm far more interested in your feelings about something than in your intellectual machinations about it. Okay? So the more you come onto the channel, everybody, you'll get to know me better. You'll know how to best work with me and how to benefit from how I teach and the energies that are coming through me to teach. All right, so let's see here. Okay, Billy Taylor, if you have a question, I'll be happy to answer it, but that's not a question. Iowa X question, what is your opinion on K2 maturity being reached at 48? What is my opinion about that? My opinion about that is that if you're quoting that from Vedic astrology, that's what it teaches. I haven't looked at K2 maturity. I've been focusing on Rahu lately. So I would have to be in that K2 frame of mind to answer that. But maybe I'll get back to that one. No one question. I am a massage therapist. Do you have any methods to release and or not take on any of my patients' issues or traumas after a session? Is it even possible that I am taking on their trauma? Yes, it is possible. I do have methods. I just shared with you the Celestial Qigong. Celestial Qigong, if you don't know, you can go up here to courses.thunderwizard.com or neo.thunderwizard.com and you'll find a link to it. Celestial Qigong was something that I synthesized from a very high level esoteric Taoist demon fighting practice. The most powerful, the most high vibration energy I myself have ever experienced. And it calls upon working with very high level energy masters. And so when you do that kind of energy work, one of the things that happens is that the energy that comes out of your hands will protect you. And it creates a protective barrier. The other thing that is happening is if you are somebody, and this is very common with masseuses. Masseuses are often givers. And so a lot of times masseuses have bad boundaries, and you'll find masseuses are the same people who also get into dysfunctional relationships and all that kind of stuff. They may have even come from dysfunctional homes. So on the one hand, it makes them very intuitive and it makes them healers because, in a dysfunctional home, and I don't know you, so I don't know if this is true about you, but when it comes to dysfunctional people who grow up in dysfunctional homes, there's one of three archetypes that they become, and one is the healer. But the healer is not just healing from a place of I just want to help you. It's coming from a place of I need to help you. I need to fix you. When that happens, then the energetic boundaries get screwed up, and then you can take on people's energy. And I know because this has happened to me before. I remember there was a girlfriend I had 20 something years ago. And, every time that I would go give her a back massage, I'd get a headache. Every time. And she had a lot of issues. And so what was happening is that, we were energetically having a contract where I was taking her issues away. And I used to do that. I used to attract all the wounded kittens. And hopefully I'm done with that. But so if that's an issue for you, then there's something I would have to know you better to know. But point is that you also need to do some work on protecting your boundaries on an emotional, psychological level. And in order for me to help you more than that, I'd have to probably have a private session with you. But I would go and if this is an issue, I would immediately start practicing celestial qigong. Okay, what else? Joseph Studley. All right. It's not a question. For those of you who are new, what I need is for you to ask questions. But I appreciate the heads up. Mystical Oracle 333. What is the best way to have the moon work in learning the Moonai key? I don't know what the Moonai key is. Why do you guys keep asking me about stuff I don't know anything about? It tells me you don't know what I teach. You trying to hurt my feelings? You trying to disrespect me? You're coming on here to learn what I teach. Learn what I teach. Anyway, I don't know anything about that tradition, so if as much as I want to answer your question, I can't. Lorena Greco question. I don't know the precise moment of my birth because there were complications and my mom almost died giving birth to me. Do these circumstances mean something? Well, what is the question you're asking me? There was a precise moment of your birth. It didn't get recorded. I don't know anything about that. If you're wanting a Vedic astrology reading, you need your exact time. You can get that service by, I don't do it, but there are Vedic astrologers who do what's called a chart rectification. And they ask you a bunch of questions. They look at the time that you know of, and then they ask you a bunch of questions, and they can narrow it down to, down to the second if they're good at it. What does it mean that you don't know the time of your birth, or what does it mean that your mom had complications? I don't have any answer for either of those. I'm sorry you went through that. You probably don't remember. You were pretty young. All right, that's it. No more questions at the moment. Take another short break, talk about celestial qigong while I just take a slight little break here for a couple of minutes, and then we can come back. If there are any more questions, I'll answer them, and if not, we'll call it an evening. Hi, I'm Michael Denny of SpiritTao.com, and this is Celestial Negung Part 1. Celestial Negung means that this is power that is descending from heaven. And the idea is that we are all microcosms of the entire universe. You are the entire universe, and everything around you is simply the projection. You are looking within yourself. So when you look up into the stars at night, you're actually looking deep within your own body. When you look at the sun, the moon, the trees, the flowers, you're looking within yourself. This is Nagel. And so what we're doing is we're simply releasing that infinity from within us. You are tapping into and releasing the power that is within our own body, our own cells, our own organs. So one of the reasons that I'm making this DVD is in the hope that the essence and the spirit of the teaching of the Shang-Ching arts can be taught to the world at large, and it is my hope that the core essence of what the Shang-Ching tradition is will continue to live and grow and evolve. As we move on into the Aquarian age, everything is changing. I don't need to tell you that. The entire world is changing, and what we are seeing now is that if people hold on to external things, they are very challenged in life. And those who are making the transition into the next phase that we are moving into in the world as we approach 2012, those who look within and find their source of strength from within, those are the people who are getting the most out of life and will make the transition into the next phase of evolution most comfortably. It is my belief that the Shang-Ching tradition is one method whereby human beings can evolve into the next level of being in the most comfortable fashion and be able to take advantage of the rapid, energetic, mental, and spiritual changes that are going on in the world today. Okay, I'm back. I don't think I saw any more questions. Excuse me. Anthony Hudson. All right, so again, if you're new, please write the word question so I know you're asking a question. Anthony Hudson, I think you're new. Where do the emotions originate? There's a misunderstanding in your question. There's an incorrect assumption. The emotions don't originate from somewhere. You are an emotional being. Your soul is an emotional being. Emotions are the essence of how you function. They don't originate somewhere. That's the kind of question, I don't know you, but that's the kind of question somebody asks when they want to control their emotions, which is a way of avoiding frightening things. The emotions are frightening, because emotions are like being, in a river. They flow places. Learning how to be in the flow is where we really get power. If you really want magical power, you've got to learn how to be in the flow. This is what meditation is about, the kind of meditation that is where you sit and watch your thoughts and your feelings. Because what that teaches you how to do, it's an exercise. People need to understand meditation like that is an exercise. The actual meditation is life. When you go through life and stuff happens, you have feelings. You have to allow those feelings to flow, but you have to take conscious action. That means you surrender to the emotions. You don't try and wrestle with them, understand them, push them away, analyze them. You have them, and then you seek to have the objectivity of the mind. The meditative mind gives you, a distance so that you can have your feelings, but you act with consciousness. So let's see, you had some other questions there. Are they connected to the body, the ego? What do you mean by the ego? I hear a lot of judgment in all of this. What is the ego? What does that mean? Or the higher mind? The higher mind or the higher self? So Anthony, I welcome you to my channel. I would invite you to watch more of what I teach, especially about the three selves, so that you can have a better understanding of what it is I teach. What I'm hearing sounds intellectualized, but the answer to your question is that the emotions originate from you, and your emotions are responses to your interaction with your life. And they are connected to the body because the nervous system, as I talked about this yesterday, the brain and the nervous system is the way that the soul interfaces with three-dimensional reality. If it wasn't a spiritual experience, we would be machines. You know, there are insects where, you know, you pull their leg off and the insect just keeps walking, doesn't even know anything has happened. They don't need to have that experience. You know, I'm not saying go pull legs off of insects. I'm just giving you, you know, we're human beings. We're very, you think about this. There are planets like a rhinoceros, try to bruise a rhinoceros. They got a really thick hide, elephant hide, horses, they're built to survive living on the planet Earth. Human beings are not built like that. We're incredibly fragile and we're extremely sensitive. You barely touch us and we feel it. We're very tactile. We have a lot of nerve endings in our body. That's because our soul wants to experience feelings and sensations. It's important that we understand that. To be a spiritual being means to have all of your feelings and all of your sensations and allow your soul to experience them. So, again, I think your questions are coming from a different place than I come from, so it's hard for me to answer them. Because, I'd more prefer, instead of trying to analyze where the emotions come from, I would prefer to help you experience the emotions instead of trying to figure them out up here in your software of your intellect. Yeah, and if listen, guys, you got to take what I say, and don't take it personally. Just listen to it, and if it applies to you, great. If not, nobody needs to defend themselves here. I'm just full of opinions, and something somebody will say will spark me to talk about a lot of other things. So, you don't have to defend yourself with me. It's okay for me to misread you. Just accept that I probably will at some point. Mystical Oracle 333 question. I am curious as to why I have no emotion example. I have no emotion. I guess there's a missing period there. Why I have no emotion. Example. When someone comes for healing, I don't feel as emotional with experiencing cry or compassion onto someone that is emotional. I don't understand what you're saying. When someone comes for healing, I don't feel as emotional. I don't know enough to tell you other than it sounds like a defense mechanism. Because a surgeon, if a surgeon is going to cut somebody open, they can't be queasy about that. I could never be a surgeon because I can't stand the sight of blood, and I can't. I wince in movies when somebody's getting hurt. I look away. I can't take it. I'm too sensitive to that. I could never be. I could never be a surgeon. I'm a great psychologist because I can get in deep and I can tell you things that are going to be difficult for you to hear, and it's okay for me that it's challenging for people to hear because I know I'm doing like emotional, psychological surgery. So if you're doing physical work on somebody and they're healing and you're not crying with them, that's healthy. It's not your job to do that. Let them have the experience. Your job is to release the tension in their body. Tension in the body, disease in the body is emotions that are trapped in the tissues. You're releasing them and you're allowing them to have their feelings. It doesn't sound like a bad thing at all. I don't understand why you need to return to having the feeling of emotions. You have emotions when you're not working on people, right? So why do you need to have emotions when you're working on them? Good for them that they can go to somebody who isn't going, that gives them freedom to have all of their emotions and not feel guilty or embarrassed because you're going to be having your professional distance. That's a good thing, if I'm hearing you right. No one question. Why is Odin portrayed with one eye? Could you explain the significance? One of his eyes is in the well of Mimir. One of his eyes, and I believe it's his left eye, one of his eyes is in the well of memory. When Odin sends out two ravens every day. One is called mind or intellect, and one is called memory. Intellect and memory. And he says he worries about them, but the one he worries about the most is memory. It means that we should never forget. We should never forget where we come from spiritually. So one of his eyes is always deep into ancient knowledge, ancient memory. The memory of who you are. That's why when people ask me, well, if we're reincarnated, why don't we remember our past lives? I said, because remembering what you did doesn't mean you remember who you are. Those are two different things. Odin never wants to forget who he is. And by extension, he's saying we should never forget who we are. Spiritually, our essence. Not who we are, my ethnic background. That's not what he means. He means forget who we are in this moment, the infinity of who we are. That's what Odin is all about. That is why I believe Odin only has one eye. Mystic, question, why are the reptilians influencing some more than others? Who said that? Did I ever say anything about reptilians influencing people at all? Answer to that question is no. So Mystic, welcome to the channel. I recommend that you go onto my channel and type in reptilians and watch the videos of me telling you what the reptilians really are. That question tells me that you don't know what I teach about that. And so learn what they are. It'll be very helpful for you. 23 Mebg. Question, what direction should one face for a moon ritual to enhance career? Well, you should face the moon if you don't know, and work directly with the moon. This is an astrology question. Go up here to courses.thunderwizard.com and click on the astrology link. Everybody, for instance, if we're talking about working with a moon god or deity, and a moon mantra and a moon ritual in order to help your career, first we need to see, is the moon the one that's going to help your career? It might not be. It might be Mars, it might be Jupiter, it might be Mercury. We don't know. So, I mean, the moon is like taking vitamin C. Everybody should always get a dose of the moon. But if you want to really know how to do a ritual, you need to know, if you're going to do a ritual to the moon, you need to know what sign the moon is placed in. The sign that the moon is placed in is going to tell you which planet is lording over that sign, which means, let's say it's a Mars sign. It means that the moon has a Mars light shining on it. That means that the moon in your life, assuming that you have moon in, say, Scorpio, if your moon is in Scorpio, it means that your moon wants to worship Mars. So you need to know what the direction of Mars is. And then you need to know what Mars in your chart wants as a sacrifice. So when you really fine tune it, the direction depends on each person. So just the direction for career isn't the same for everybody. Sorry, I can't better answer your question, but this is what I do. Mystical Oracle 333. Okay, that's not a question. Okay, good. So I think we're done with the questions. I need to go take a break and relax. This has been a long, stressful day for me. So I've done my due diligence here. The links are here for a reason, guys. And you got nothing to lose by checking them out. If you really want to get the most out of my channel, I recommend especially neo.thunderwizard.com. But if you're new to the channel, I strongly recommend, once again, you learn how to search within my channel, my free channel. I have over 400 videos on there are, I can't even count how many free meditations, energy exercises, rituals, things that you do if you put the effort into doing the exercises that I teach. Your life will change. Do not come onto my channel just because you want to talk about spirituality. If that's all you want to do, I will at some point get frustrated with you because I will tell that you're stuck in your head. Spirituality is an experience, and you can only experience spirituality by doing spiritual exercises. Thinking about spirituality can get you only so far. So go onto my channel and just binge watch as many videos as you can and take advantage of the resources that are here in these links. It's worth your time and it's worth your investment. Okay, that's it for me right now. I gotta go. All right, guys, thank you so much. I will see you very soon.